group of current and former college athletes are now suing the NCAA over its transgender policy. The lawsuit filed earlier this month claiming the NCAA violated Title IX rights by allowing swimmer Lia Thomas, a transgender woman, to take part in the 2022 national championships. Now, the issue also veering into the political realm, with many states now taking up or enacting laws restricting trans athletes in women's sports. For more, let's welcome in Paula Scanlan, a former swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania and a teammate of Lia Thomas's. Paula, thanks so much for making the time tonight.
Thank you so much for having me tonight.
So you are not involved in the aforementioned lawsuit, but do you support those challenging the NCAA, and why?
Absolutely, I support them. Obviously, Riley Gaines is one of the biggest names in the lawsuit, very close friend of mine. What they went through at the NCAA championship was discrimination. The girls were told that they had to undress in a locker room with a man, that they were not comfortable doing so, and they were just given no opportunity to voice their concerns. And additionally, every single girl that competed in an event that Thomas swam in lost an opportunity to advance further. There's a girl in the lawsuit who placed 17th. If you place top 16, you get an honorable All-American mention. And she was denied that opportunity, so that's one of the reasons that she's part of the lawsuit. Again, having one male, even if they place last, displaces another girl from qualifying for the meet altogether. So absolutely, I do support these girls in suing. And I do hope the NCAA does take accountability for their actions and further changes their policies to make sure this never happens again.
And to be clear, when you say undress in the dressing room with the changing room with a man, you're referring to Lia Thomas, who identifies as a trans woman.
Yes.
So you say that you feel the NCAA has abandoned women and girls with their inaction. Tell me why.
I think that if you're going to have women's sports, they need to be protected, and we need to have an understanding of what that word means. I think that if we're going to have people who are males in women's sports, that it takes away the integrity of the sport. And coaches are going to become incentivized to recruit male athletes. If one team has a male athlete, every team is going to want their own male athletes. And we can't depend on the coaches to make the right decisions, because ultimately they're following the NCAA guidelines if they continue to allow this. So again, if we're going to have women's sports, they need to be protected.
You are a former teammate of Leah's. Do you think her medal should be taken away?
I think that they should definitely be reassigned. There should be asterisks put into place to note that this is not a woman that competed in the category. I think there's a lot of people who lost out on opportunities. Again, this was not the case with this current NCAA championship, but the awarding of points could have rearranged which team ended up winning the championship. This is a huge issue in the integrity of sports, and it can ultimately change the course of people's lives. You can depend on saying you were part of a national winning team, and then you lose that opportunity because there's someone who's competing unfairly. In the case of Lance Armstrong and some of the cyclists, they were stripped of their titles when they were found to be doping. I really don't see this as being something that is that different from that.
How would you describe being on a team with her? Do you feel the NCAA abandoned women and girls, as you say, all the way back when Leah joined the team?
Absolutely, because we were not given an opportunity to discuss what was happening. I understand that they were put in an impossible situation based on the NCAA rules, but we were not given an opportunity to express our concerns in undressing in a locker room. We were not given the opportunity to talk about our feelings of unfairness. The university told us that if we continue to have an issue with it, that we should seek psychological services. And I think that message sends to us our feelings don't matter, and there's no room for conversation. And I think that's one of the biggest issues I had, and I know a lot of other athletes who were put in the same position also had those same concerns.
The ACLU of Ohio says that as of last March, only 34 transgender male and female athletes have openly competed in collegiate sports across all levels. Do you think there is actually such an expansive skill discrepancy that warrants a lawsuit like this?
I think that there is, especially since, so you mentioned collegiate athletes, but what about high school level? What about middle school level? We're seeing stories time and time again at the younger levels that girls are being discriminated against. And obviously we need to fix those things at the high school level, but the NCAA is the main governing body. If you play a sport in high school, your goal is to play at the NCAA level. So we need to make sure the NCAA sets that message and sets a tone that they won't allow males who competed on female teams in high schools to then become athletes on women's teams in colleges. So I think that that's where it comes from the top. It needs to be put down.
And Paula, we're out of time, but I just want to ask very quickly, with these sort of internal feelings and this battle that you were going through, what was it like to interact with Leah? Did you ever speak with her directly in rejecting her feelings, her identity as being a woman? You saw her as a man. Did you ever directly talk to her about this?
I tried to avoid conflict in the situation. Again, I wanted to really, it's not Leah's fault that Leah was competing on our team. It really is the fault of the people who put this policy into place, like the NCAA and the Ivy League and all the other governing sports bodies that allow males to compete in women's sports. And I think that that is where the problem lies. And to tell an individual who's simply following misguided rules is not an effective way to solve anyone's problems.
Paula Scanlan, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.